Hello everyone, welcome to Self-Knowledge. Today we're having lecture number 35 of this course of self-knowledge that we broadcast every Sunday through this page at the same time. So today we'll see a very important topic. Today we will give some important explanations about family and attachments. In today's lecture, we will understand what the family is by learning about the three types of family that we have. And allow me just a second, let me check. I think there is a problem with the broadcast. Let me check this. Just a second. Allow me just a second. Let me check something here. Okay, so I was saying, today we will understand what the family is. We are going to learn the three types of family that we have. We will see the misconceptions that we have about family, and also we will see the value that family has in our esoteric work. And also we will see the problems that these misconceptions that we have about family can originate in the development of our interior work, and also the stagnation and the conflicts that can generate to us all the attachments or that emotional dependence that we generate around people and around things, and that we misunderstand these attachments as love. So the first thing that we must understand in today's lecture is that there are three types of family. The first one belongs to our exterior world, where we find our physical body and we find our personality, and that is our physical family. There we find our mother, our father, brothers, couple, our children, our uncles, our grandparents, and so on. And the second family that we are going to see today is the psychological one. That one belongs to our interior world, our soul, to our mind, to our energy. That psychological family is made up of all our ego, or our different ways of being, and there, as we know, 97% of our essence is trapped. And the third family is what we can call the real family. This one belongs to our spirit, to our consciousness. So we can say that this one belongs to the inner world of the interior world. This family is made up of that 3% of free consciousness that we all have, which is our spirit, to which we will be adding the essences that we will be rescuing from the psychological prison with the work of the psychological death. And as each of the psychological elements that we have, our psychological defects, they have a real and true part that is trapped inside them. But now that we know the three types of family, let's take a closer look at each one of them. Let's first analyze the physical family. We know that undoubtedly we all need a physical body to be able to exist, to have a physical existence, and to do our inner work. And we know that us human beings at birth, we are defenseless. And that is why we must have a mother who takes care of us until we can defend ourselves. There we begin to see the need and the importance of having a physical family. Let me check, because I think the broadcast is like having some issues. Let me try to fix them. Just a second. Okay, let me see if this fixed the problem. Well, I hope so. And as we saw in the lecture where we talk about the law of return, we know that we all have the right to have 108 physical human bodies. This implies that we must be born 108 times. Therefore, throughout our existences, we will have 108 mothers and 108 fathers. So if we stop for a moment and we analyze this, if we start also to investigate our past lives in the astral world, and we become aware of the reality of this, that in each existence that we have lived until now, we have had fathers, mothers, couples, children, brothers, and analyzing this and like reflecting on this, we can actually ask ourselves if, for example, as in most cases, we are already in existence 108, which of all the 108 mothers we have had is the real one? Which of the 108 dads we have had is the real one? Which of all the thousands of brothers who we have had until now are the real ones? They have been actually a lot. So the truth is that with the people that made up our physical family, we usually have certain karmic commitments, certain debts, let's call it like that, since they have, how can I explain that? We must pay them for the different bodies that they have been given to us. For this reason, it is very common that we return in the seeds of our descendants. So we must understand that our parents are actually brothers who are collaborating with us, giving us this physical body as a payment for another existence in which we gave them the opportunity to come to this physical manifestation, and we give them a physical body because we return in the seeds of our descendants. Likewise, we will have maybe these assistant children with whom we will pay for the physical bodies that we already received in past existences. So we are all related because of certain karmic debts, not only that one. And another aspect of vital importance of our physical body and physical family, and perhaps the most important of all is our couple, our partner. We know that for the reproduction of the species, it is necessary to find a partner. But the most important part is that the creation of the existential bodies of the being will be done in sex. And for that, we know that we must have a stable partner. So the couple is actually very important, since it's a brother or a sister who is collaborating with us to achieve this great work of self-realization, and we in return are collaborating with them. So likewise, our children are also brothers with whom we are collaborating by giving them the opportunity of having a physical existence, so they also have the opportunity to make their path towards self-realization by giving them care, education, shelter, and protection until they can fend for themselves and they can make their own homes and their own path. But what happens? That people born from the same mother are what we know or what we call brothers and sisters. And we tend to see people on the street as strangers because they were not born in our house. But we don't understand that they are all our brothers. So we need to understand that our home is not limited to what is inside the walls of our house, as the planet Earth is our real home. And all the people of the planet are actually sparks that emanate from the sacred absolute sun, just as we did, and that we have come to this planet with the same exact purpose to draw wisdom from the experience of the duality in this planet. So, therefore, our house is the planet Earth, and our family are all the inhabitants of the planet. That is why that love that we feel for our children or our parents, we must learn to extend it to all humanity. I mean, we must expand that capacity for love that we seek to help or to use it, seek to help all humanity. That is actually what an awakened master does. But the attachment that we create around the people who make up our physical family doesn't allow us to see and to understand that all human beings are brothers to each other and that there is no other link or title. Even though our parents, our children, our partner, we are all brothers. So it's all the same. Now, let's now analyze a little the psychological family. The inner family is made up of elements that are called I's or selves or psychological defects. They are all that multiplicity of different ways of being that reside in our interior. We have actually selves of all models. We could synthesize them in the 7 causal selves, sloth, greed, lust, pride, wrath, gluttony, and envy. But as Virgilio, the Mantuan poet, said, even if we had a plate of steel and 1,000 tongues, we wouldn't be able to fully enumerate them because they are so many. But happens that each one has its own percentage of spark inside of trapped essence, and they have grown by or because of the totality of the energy that they have absorbed throughout their existence. So that happens every time that we feed the defect, that we let the defect manifest through us. And the sum of all our psychological defects is our psychological family or our inner world. The biggest problem that the members of this family represent is that they have, as I said, are consciousness trapped, and that they handled and misuse the different energies of the centers of our machine. Hence, the importance of constantly be practicing the self-observation so we can discover them in our mind, in our emotion, in our actions, in our words, in our sex, and in all the tensions and the sensations and the desires that they constantly make us feel, and to be constantly eliminating them through the request to our Divine Mother so we can release the consciousness and the energy that is trapped inside each one of them. Our inner family was actually formed by the misuse of the sexual creative energy because the first time that we fell into fornication, which was a true original sin, there we fall and we created the 7 causal selves, those in greed, envy, laziness, and so on that you know. But with all the untransformed impression, and as we continue fornicating, and as we are not in concentration, as we actually, and due to the lack of concentration that we have, we usually identify ourselves with many situations, and because of all those untransformed impressions, we don't practice a psychological death, we continuously multiply these psychological defects because we are giving them our energy, and they just multiply in us, and with the passage of time we have created inside of us a legion. And those defects are all our vices, our desires, our mistakes, our sufferings, our pleasures, our reactions, etc. And they are actually bitter to us than the physical family, than our physical children themselves, since we more easily sacrifice the physical or the psychological integrity of our own children, of our own family, than denying ourselves to feed our psychological defects. We see how by feeding the vice, people are capable of leaving their children without sustenance. How by defending their pride, someone is actually capable of losing their partner. Or we can see how we prefer to mistreat or humiliate a child rather than refuse to react according to our anger. And we prefer to feed our violent or bad-tempered flaws instead of taking care of the integrity of that person that we say we love so much. Then we see how not only we don't deny ourselves our defects, but rather we defend them and we feed them at will. Hence, the attachment and the biggest attachment that we actually have is to our psychological defects. So you are going to see it, you are going to experience it and verify it when you advance in the work of the psychological death. You're going to see that it hurts to let go one of our desires, one of our wrong ways of being, because we are very attached to some of them. So actually, if we don't work on that attachment, the psychological death is going to hurt sometimes. Now let's analyze the real family, what the real family is. So we call it the real family because it has always existed and always will exist. It is our spirit, our inner being, the inner world of our interior world. And it is made up of many parts, and all of them are unfoldings of our internal fathers. God as Father represents our wisdom, and God as Mother represents our essence, our raw material, our creative sexual energy, or the creative energy of the Holy Spirit. It also represents our love. And God as Son symbolizes in us the justice, our psychological trainer. We are going to be learning more about that in later lectures. And the giver of light, which is wisdom, and of fire, which is love. And these three primary forces that belongs to our inner Father in us unfolds into three others, which are Atman, which is intimate inside of the warrior, the Buddhi, which is our divine soul or the Valkyrie, and Manas, which is the Christic will in us, the word. It also represents our human soul. But there are also many other parts of our being. We find the inner Christ, the 12 apostles, the 24 Baker elders, etc. We are going to, as we work on ourselves, we're going to be meeting the different parts of our being, or the different, let's say, members of our real family. And to the extent that we work on the three factors, and the revolution of the consciousness advances, the integration of our being begins. So we experience that all those parts which are currently trapped in the legion that we have created are going to be released and integrated in order to achieve the sacred individuality, since in the end all of them will be a unit, the Christ. So now that we have explained the three types of family, let's see the attachment issue. Let's see what are we attached to, why do we think that being attached is being in love, and what are these attachments based on. But first, let's analyze what is an attachment. Well, we can say that an attachment is an affective bond that extends in time, like that emotional bond that we created as a child towards our favorite toy, and we didn't want anyone else to play with it, and we cried if someone touched it or if we lost them. That is the attachment. And so we were creating an affected bond towards everyone and everything that generated us pleasure, and to everything that we could call mine, to our mom, our dad, our house, our money, our partner, our children, and so on. And we believe that what we feel towards those people or towards those things is love. However, it is not love, because that we feel leads us to suffering, and true love never leads us to suffer, because love is, or true love is, a virtue of our consciousness. However, when someone is attached to something or to someone, they suffer. Attachment is totally related to suffering, because if I'm attached to something, I am going to suffer when I lose it, when I don't have it anymore. And since we have that inner emptiness due to the lack of contact with our own inner being, we are constantly unhappy, and we are constantly seeking to cling or become attached to people and to become attached to material things, and thus we create that false happiness that lasts only as long as that relationship lasts, as long as that person or that stuff is with us. And when we lose them, we suffer. So we become attached to all comforts and to our loved ones, and this prevents us from seeing the reality of things, the inconsequential and transient and the fleeting that all physical things actually are. And we don't see how, by attaching to them, we actually lock ourselves, or we lock ourselves in, or we hinder our ability to ascend, and we also tie them down too. And we need to also analyze that all attachment have its origin in fear. We become attached to all things, and then we live like in hell, in the torture of the fear of losing them. We are afraid of losing our material possessions, afraid of losing our partner, of losing our money. We are afraid that those we love will die, because we understand, and or because we don't understand, and we don't accept the reality of life and death, and how fleeting existence is, and the reality that death as such doesn't exist. You can see that a father and a mother is attached to their son, And even if he has grown up, they continue to interfere in his life, and they want to manipulate him or force him to do what they want, to study what they think is correct, to take the partner they think is the correct one, and they are in constant fear that something will happen to their son. And for these attachments, all kinds of unhealthy and toxic relationships are created. When one manages to understand that every attachment has a fear behind, and that it is actually a psychological defect who generates that fear for losing that thing that generates us pleasure or comfort or security, then we begin to reflect on what is the fear behind every attachment that we have, and what is the defect behind that fear. And when we eliminate it with the psychological death, we free ourselves from that fear, and we free ourselves from that attachment. And there we rescue that true capacity to love that is actually based on respect and freedom. For example, if I discover that I am attached to, let's say, my mother, because the mere fact of imagining that she would die makes me suffer, if I sit and I reflect, who is the one inside of me who suffers there? And I discover that if she dies, I will no longer have someone to help me financially. And there I can discover that it's actually my greedy self, the one that is causing that attachment. Or I discover that I'm going to suffer if she dies because I'm no longer going to have someone who clean me my bedroom or who feed me. Then I discover that it's actually my lazy I that is going to suffer if my mother dies. So it's the one who is actually creating that fear. So when one discovers that it is such I that suffer, and we eliminate that psychological defect, then that fear disappears, and then that attachment disappears, and we start really loving people, because what we call love is actually an interest. And actually, this issue of attachment is something terrible. It ends up delaying and even paralyzing the possibility of self-realization if we don't understand it perfectly. You see that a man and a woman get together, and the first thing that they look for is a roof. Then they begin to fill it with furniture, and then they make roots, and later, come the children, the properties, the goods, and thousands of other things. And what we do, we stick to all these comforts, and we suffer at the mere thought of losing them. We actually worry about what our life would be, what our life will be like without it. And the problem is that we feel ourselves in things and in people, and we have become accustomed to them, and we don't want to be discomfort. We feel that these things have cost us a lot of work. We think that being without these things or without that people would be like going backwards, and then we start getting concerned about what others will say if we lose our things, or what others will think, etc. And we become tied to all these things that we have. We feel owners of our children, of our wife, husband, and this prevents us from seeing the reality of things, the passing of all things and of all circumstances of life. If we don't work with all, or if we don't work on all our attachments, there will come a time when the attachment will be heavier than the inner work that we are making, and we are going to be totally stagnated. So it is necessary to understand, the conflicts that exist with the family and the attachments. We need to have it very clear, as it said, very well understood, so as not to get stuck at our inner work. If we were aware that every time that we buy one more decorations for our house, we tend to divide and to fractionate our love, and that when we are seeking for self-realization, what we are doing is that we are integrating love. If we get to understand that, so we learn not to attach into things, we wouldn't need to, let's say, throw away the house or get rid of things. But we understand that is the important part, why we want it the way we want it. If we manage to do it, also with the people, with family, we will not need to divest ourselves of the family. No, that is not the point. Another thing that is important to understand is that when we are working on ourselves in the inner world, we must go through trials. And these trials that we live in the astral world can be passed or failed. And if one is too attached, one usually fails the trials. There are four trials that put us incessantly when we are in this work. They are the trials of air, fire, water, and earth. And no one would pass the trials of air if they have attachments. Every time we are internally, let's say in a dream or being conscious in the astral, and we are thrown into an abyss and we scream, that scream is the symptom of an attachment. An attachment to the physical body, to this, to that, to the child, to our things, whatever. And the masters make us see it internally by launching us from above. Then we feel the terror of losing and we scream. And that way we fail the trials of air. On the other hand, if we are working on ourselves, if we are working on our attachments, when we are like thrown away, what we do is that we fly, or we just remain calm. And that way we pass the trial. And if we understand this topic, we can get the work of self-realization done in one existence. We can move on when we have to make any decisions. So we must know that family is a duty, but we need to know how far the duties and the rights with the family go in order to consciously advance in the integration of our real family and the disintegration of the psychological defects, so these attachments don't become like I say, like stone in the road, no, like an obstacle. So actually this has been today's topic. I hope it is helpful for you, and as always, I'm going to invite you to our next lecture that will be next Sunday, where we will talk about transcendental meditation and how we can reach the state of meditation known as samadhi, or illuminating void through the koans. So don't miss that interesting lecture, and thank you all very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.